Well, hello, class. Here we are on the second half of the week. We're going to be spending 4 days on communication, chapter 11. And why 4 days on this? Well, communication is probably everything that has to do with organizational behavior. Has everything to do with understanding the systems approach to management. It's the structural context of everything that we do. It creates the culture or breaks it down. It communicates the culture using the SWOT analysis for everything we do internally and externally in an organization. And in order to be successful, managers must be able to communicate effectively. Let's face it. So, what this chapter does is it essentially describes the communication process and the various ways managers communicate to their employees. And as much as we communicate, we also know that there are often specific barriers to communication. So let's talk about the objectives of this particular chapter. The first thing is what we want to do is we want to describe the functions and the process of communication. We want to contrast downward, upward, and lateral. In other words, we want a 360-degree communication process in our organization. We're going to talk about working in large groups, smaller groups, which we often refer to as networks, and of course the informal group, which we can't ignore, that often is very influential but may not always be effective, depending on how we look at it and the context of what is being discussed. And we usually refer to this as the grapevine. That's right. The other objective is we're going to contrast oral, written, and nonverbal communication. We know there are all different types of communication. We speak, we write down. The nonverbal, oh yeah, okay, that is the body language, right? Okay, think of it when your kids take a look at you and roll their eyes. Huh, what does it make you do? Makes your blood boil, right? Well, think of employees that you could tell by their body language they may not like to do what they're doing, or they may love to do what they're doing. You can walk into a fast food establishment, for example, look at the employees sometimes and say they really like being here. They enjoy working here. So communication talks a lot about the culture. So we're going to talk about channels of communication. There's different channels, right? Channel richness underlines the choice of the communication channel that we use to correspond with one another. We're also going to talk about or differentiate between automatic and controlled processing, how to leave persuasive messages. And the other thing is with social media, we know how rampant and how effective and how quick communication is. So often we don't think because we're multitasking, and then we might be communicating something to 10,000 people on the internet and say, oh my God, I want my boss to get that. So think about the different types of ways that we communicate with one another and be very specific and methodical. We have to be proactive in who we want to get the communication to. So we're going to look at common barriers to effective communication. And finally, we're going to try to figure out how to overcome the potential problems of cross-cultural communication. In today's day and age, we talk a lot about diversity. Well, we have many different cultures, many different orientations. How do we communicate effectively with one another in that process? So that's what the next 4 days is going to be all about. And look forward to working with you. We're going to have 2 hypotheticals in this particular section as well. Okay.